Hello, people of YouTube. This is Gray's Guitars. I am Steve Gray. Arthritis and guitars and arthritis are guitars for people with arthritis. Let's take a look here at this article from Premier Guitar. I feel like this is going to become more and more of a problem, especially for those people such as myself that have an office job where you're glued to a computer all day. You're typing on keys, and then you go home and then you're doing stuff on the computer, so you're typing on keys again. And then if you play guitar, then you're doing more stuff with your hands. You're cooking dinner. Everything you're doing, you're constantly using your hands. You're wearing them out, and 30 to 40 years of doing that is probably going to wear away all the cartilage. And you see professional guitar players, a lot of them are using arthritis hand creams. A lot of them are taking ibuprofen before they go out and play on stage. So you can still do it, but I have bought two or three guitars from a couple of older guys that had arthritis, where they were like, yeah, I had, like 10, 15 guitars. I'm keeping a one. I'm keeping a small practice amp, and, once in a great while I'll play it, but my hands hurt and I really can't do it anymore. So let's see what we got here. So how to pick an acoustic guitar so this is more specific for acoustic, but this could probably go for electric too, for arthritic hands. As players get older, our instrument needs change. Our columnist shares how he designed an acoustic adapted to arthritis. For many acoustic guitars, playing the instrument is one of life's greatest joys. As a luthier, I've seen firsthand how deeply musicians cherish their guitar, something they look forward to playing not just weekly, but daily. As any guitarist knows, some guitars simply feel different. While some are more rigid and require extra effort to play, others feel smooth and effortless. With this in mind, as our playing needs evolve, so too may the instruments we choose to accompany us. My clientele is diverse, ranging from musicians in their 20s to those as well as in their 70s and 80s. One common challenge I have observed is that as players reach their 50s, many begin to experience arthritis, which can hinder their ability to play comfortability. There are several techniques luthiers use to improve playability, such as lowering the action or opting for a shorter scale length. For instance, switching from a Martin 25.4, I think that's wrong, it should be 25.5 inch scale length, to a Gibson 24 3/4. But over the years, I began considering whether it'd be possible to design a guitar specifically for players with arthritis, allowing them to continue playing with less strain on their hands, shoulders, and overall body. My guitars are already designed to be exceptionally easy to play. They are not built for aggressive strumming or rugged outdoor use, though I can accommodate various styles. Recently, I took this concept a step further to a customer, creating an instrument that was a smaller neck, moving away from the traditional 1.7 inch nut width. What is that in millimeters? Out of curiosity. 2 millimeters. Let's take a quick look. 24.4 millimeters. That doesn't sound right. Usually, okay, there we go. Yeah, 44.4. That sounds more reasonable. I was like a standard Gibson's like 43 millimeters and a Fender's like 42. I like to measure a lot of guitar stuff. I prefer to measure in millimeters as opposed to inches. I don't know why. It's just easier numbers for me to remember. Refined it as a slender 1.675. So I honestly don't like a thinner nut width. I feel like that's also going to be up to the person. I don't necessarily think changing the nut width might affect the easeability of play. Maybe it does. I feel like your hands might even feel more cramped depending on the size of your hands. String pacing at the bridge was adjusted to 2 3/16 instead of the wider 2 1/4. Spacing used primarily for fingerstyle playing. Additionally, I incorporated 25 inch scale length for a lower string tension at full pitch. Now, I already typically play Gibson scale lengths. That's the scale length I prefer anyway. So I might be SOL when I get older. Who the heck knows? I do have some, a variety of guitars with different scale lengths, but it's primarily the Gibson scale length. Combined with 13 frets to divide the design, these adjustments made the guitar feel significantly smaller and more comfortable, so kind of, making a smaller guitar in the player's hands. To enhance comfort further, I used Orchestra Classic Instruments and added both an arm and belly bevel. Yeah, those are always nice. I feel like people gain weight when they get older. I know I'm a big fella, so a belly cut and a nice arm cut is always nice. Reducing strain on the player's shoulders, even though I am an OM for this build, and Auditorium Classic designs work well too. However, the most crucial aspect of the instrument was the top, which serves as its engine. I selected a piece of moon spruce, personally sourced in Switzerland in August of last year. This type of spruce is lightweight and highly responsive. More importantly, when voiced and tuned correctly, it requires minimal effort to produce sound and has a higher level of admittance. Admittance is a crucial factor when evaluating a musical instrument, whether one you are building or considering for purchase. In guitars and tone woods, admittance is the amount of sound that can be produced with a standard level of effort. If a piece of wood has a higher level of dampening, it will not produce sound efficiently when built into a guitar, resulting in an instrument that is less enjoyable to play. Conversely, if the wood exhibits an extremely low level of dampening, the guitar may feel responsive and lively, but that does not necessarily indicate a well-balanced instrument. Dampening must be carefully controlled, particularly on the soundboard. To achieve an ideal balance, a properly voiced guitar should provide excellent responsiveness, a full and resonant sound, and treble frequencies that are rich and warm rather than thin or overly sharp. Thus, when discussing these aspects of the guitar construction and tone word selection, key term item is to remember admittance. For this build, I was looking for high admittance while retaining a deep, well-balanced tone. The player, this meant that that evening with a standard at A440, and regardless of whether they choose light or medium strings, I think that's the tuning pitch, A440 if I remember correctly. Though light gauge is preferred, yeah, if you have arthritis, you're not going to want a heavy gauge string. You want it easier to lower action, and it's going to be kind of hard because typically if you want a lower, like super low action, you need a heavier gauge string. So that way they're not super floppy, you don't vibrate as much and buzz, but you want kind of a combination of low action and low tension. You're asking for it to be buzzy. You unfortunately have to find a medium there. Any movement on the strings, whether by the picking hand or the fretting hand, requires significantly less effort than on a traditional guitar. This is due to the top's high flexibility and responsiveness, allowing for soft touch while maintaining a respective level of volume. I think it's, Brian May from Queen. I believe his guitar, if I remember correctly, is 25 and a half inches, and he uses 8s. So, a lot of people, the typical guitar strings, I would say, is like a 10. Some people, if you like drop tuning, then you start going into 11s, maybe even 12s. If that's too much for you, a lot of people start on 9s and then work their way up to 10s. But typically something on like a 24 and 3/4 inch scale length guitar, you can put 9s on it, but you're going to have a little bit higher action, or you will get more buzzing. If you put some 10s on there, which is, as I said, kind of your average string gauge, you can get a little bit lower action. If it's a 25 and a half inch scale length, because it's the longer scale length, tighter string tension, you can use 9s pretty easily. That's what I found. I like my 9s on my like Fender Strat style guitars, and then 10s more preferably on the Gibson style. So for those dealing with arthritis, on the other hand, related challenges, selecting a softer playing guitar is essential. Short scale lengths can be beneficial, but having an instrument custom built by a luthier who understands these conditions can make a significant difference. Yes, but also very expensive. But at the same time, if you're retiring, hopefully you saved up a good chunk of money. So maybe you can have one, $3,000 to $5,000 guitar. That is perfect for all of your arthritis hand needs. For my customer facing these issues, my goal is to ensure they can continue playing for as long as possible. I recognize how important the guitar is to their lives, and I want to help them keep playing without unnecessary discomfort. If you're experiencing difficulties, there are open, available solutions worth exploring. Even I think it was a Les Paul himself. I believe it was a shoulder or his elbow, something he had fused. He needed major surgery on it just because of wear and tear over time. Human condition, unfortunately. I know he had a surgery where I think he fused his arm at a right angle so he could still continue to play guitar even into his, I want to say, was he 80-something or early 90s? So more information, 5 steps better hybrid picking, yep, all that good stuff. So essentially what you're going to want to do for the older players out there that have arthritis is, consult the doctor for the pain first and foremost, see if anything can be done. I'd recommend that personally. Go to your local physician. And then in terms of guitar, as I said, the nut width, I feel like that's more about the size of the hands. I don't like narrower nut widths. I know I had one acoustic that was a 41 millimeter nut width, and I just could not get used to it. You think 1 millimeter doesn't make that much of a difference. 42, 43 is fine. but I just do not like it. So that's something I would say, try it before you buy it, if you will. All these things, try it before you buy. Just get, you can get even like a Fender Mustang 24-inch scale length. You can probably get away with putting tens on it and not be too much tension. I wouldn't, 24-inch scale length is pretty short. I don't know if I'd want to put nines on it. I'd be afraid that there wouldn't be enough tension on the strings and things would be getting really floppy. But yeah, if you're practicing with a 25.5-inch, going down to a Gibson scale length 24 3/4 will help. Lower string gauges will help. Scalloped frets also might help too, because then your finger isn't actually pressing into the fret. So that might be an option too, is a scalloped fretboard. And then just a comfortable neck profile. You need to find I wouldn't recommend a V shape. Probably not super comfortable. Probably like a 60s neck, standard C, Fender C shape, standard thin, I think is what they call it. That would probably help too, getting more wood out of the way, a little bit thinner neck, a little bit less string tension, and consulting a doctor. That's what I got for you. I know me, once in a while I get a little bit of pain on the top of my hands, which is kind of weird. I think that's more tendonitis or something, as opposed to arthritis, something about the angle of me typing. I've been more cautious about how I use the keyboard, so I can continue to type and do my job and play guitar, even though I haven't played guitar a lot lately. But maybe if I get in a band again, I will start playing every day again, because it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I've been trying to sell some of my collection off. I do have a reverb shop if you're interested. I got a couple of guitars that are one's on the cheaper side, a couple are on the more expensive side. Let me know, make an offer if you want. I always recommend, it doesn't hurt to make an offer. Worst I say is no. Other than that, subscribe, notification bell, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.